Hello, Piedmonsters, and welcome to Piedmonsters, the Piedmont Pilot Podcast brought to you by your Piedmont MEC. I'm your host, Megan Johnson, Charlotte-based captain and vice chair of the Communications Committee. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are excited to revisit that topic with our Pilot Peer Support Chair, Captain Amanda Fallon, as well as licensed marriage and family therapist and aviation specialist, Cynthia Pinion. For additional mental health discussion, please go back and listen to our May 2025 episode, which included our then PPS chair, Captain Sharon Curley, as well as Piedmont Vice President of Safety, Julie Schell. These topics continue to be of utmost importance in the aviation industry and to this MEC. I will include many links in the show notes with information and resources. But before all of that, our news and updates from around the MEC. Regarding midterm bargaining, after reaching agreement in principle, your negotiating committee is actively in the finalization process of the updated terms reached during midterm bargaining. Reminder that while these contractual finalizations are still in process, previous terms of our CBA are still in effect. If you have any questions regarding midterm bargaining, please reach out to our dedicated email address, pdtmidterm2026@alpa.org. Regarding pilot pay, please be on the lookout in the near future for a pilot pay survey. This will be distributed to the email address where you currently receive your ALPA communications and will provide important data points as we move towards the end of 2026. Thank you as always for listening. Like and subscribe to Piedmonsters wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And follow us on Instagram at Piedmont Pilots. You can also email us at pdtpodcast@alpa.org with any comments or suggestions. And now we're joined by Amanda and Cynthia for more information and updates regarding pilot mental health and the resources available. Hello and welcome to our May edition of Piedmonsters, the Piedmont Pilot Podcast. And as many of you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we actually did a feature last year on Piedmonsters talking about some of the mental health resources available to pilots. But since it is such a hot button topic and something that is so important and constantly developing and changing, we wanted to readdress mental health resources available to pilots. And we are joined for this edition by Captain Amanda Fallon, who is the chair of our PPS Pilot Peer Support Committee. And I will have her introduce herself because she's also involved in many other things. And we are also joined by Cynthia Pinion, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a strong background in aviation as well. So real quickly, Amanda, could you give us a little bit of background about yourself and your current role as chair of the Pilot Peer Support Committee?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for listening today. I'm a Philly captain, and I'm also the chair of the Pilot Peer Support Committee with ALPA. I lead our committee, coordinate our volunteers, and I also work with the escalation protocol, which I'll talk about a bit later. And with National on the PPS side, I'm also the regional coordinator, so I work with all the regional airline chairs to make sure that we're all getting the support we need for our unique situation at the regionals. And I am the comms director for international rights and the newsletters for the volunteers and things like that.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you for all of the work you do, both within Piedmont's MEC and also at the ALPA national level. We very much appreciate it. And Cynthia, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit of your background in aviation.
Yes, of course. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, or LMFT as we're called, for the state of Florida. I actually am a former in-flight crew member for Piedmont Airlines. I have aviation background that extends all the way back to 1997, and I've been involved ever since, either as an employee of the airlines or also has just been around the industry in general. I do work with pilots and flight attendants and all types of folks that are in the industry because of my knowledge of how it works, how that coincides with mental health. As we all know, with pilot group particularly, there is a lot of stigma around going and talking to someone because of the FAA requirements and the securing that medical certificate. So it does become a little bit of a situation where people are a little bit nervous about things, but I try to really make that process a lot easier and make it more understandable from my point of view and how we can go forward and make sure they're getting the right help that they need in addition to being able to still do their job.
That's amazing. And to your point, there is a lot of not just stigma, but frequently genuine concern from pilots and I would imagine also from flight attendants about seeking mental health help and how that could potentially affect their jobs, what they are required to disclose. And we're going to get into that in a little bit as well, and kind of some of the ins and outs of how to navigate that process if seeking therapy is something that a pilot chooses to pursue. But first, we're going to kind of bounce back to Amanda and talk a little bit about pilot peer support. Amanda, could you tell us a little bit about what the pilot peer support program is and how it works?
Yes, so ALPA created pilot peer support to support pilots with everyday struggles that do not fall under the umbrellas of our other committees like CIRP or ProStands, which is like a work-related incident or a work conflict. Trained PPS volunteers are standing by to assist our pilots. Some examples of issues we are equipped to help with are financial stressors, adjustment to the job, and relationship issues, grief and loss, and anything really that's affecting a pilot in their life. No two calls are the same. Everything is different, and we are ready for all of it. Our training equips us for all different types of things that come up for a pilot. And speaking of training, our volunteers are all trained, and PPS training, I like to call it, it's basically like mental health first aid. Call the volunteer is a chance to decompress from stressors and get ready to fly. We're trained to assess the caller's immediate needs, listen non-judgmentally, share resources inside and outside of ALPA, and we will utilize active listening skills to provide confidential support for the caller. We utilize something called the mental health continuum, and we identify where the caller falls on the mental health continuum to help guide the caller in determining their fitness to fly and utilizing the I'm Safe checklist, which is all pilot guided. We are most equipped to help in the mental health continuum in the self-care and social support range, which is when you are healthy or reacting, which is common and reversible distress. So we want to try to catch you when you're in the green or the yellow before you start getting into the orange and the red, which is when you would most likely benefit from professional intervention.
That makes sense.
Most resources and calls sooner rather than later. So that's how we can avoid the escalation protocol that I talked about. But in the rare case that a call needs to be escalated, which is a very small percentage of our calls, by the way, then we have a very specific protocol to keep that pilot's information confidential, because confidentiality is a key part of our program. You'll never hear your story discussed with other pilots. Like, no one will even de-identified. We just still are not talking about what we hear in phone calls, just generalizations and training scenarios. But only a qualified member of the PPS team will decide if the full escalation protocol is warranted for a caller, and it is very rare. So, like, if it's, let's say it's your volunteer's first call, they're not going to be the one deciding, like, okay, we need to send this person to a professional. There's a
Right.
whole process. We involve a lot of people involved. I'm one of the escalation protocol volunteers as well, so I work with that very closely. And PPS no way reportable to the FAA, and they are just a call to a fellow pilot, understands the unique stresses of our profession. We are not medical professionals in any way, so there's nothing to report.
Exactly. But it is nice to have kind of that listening ear and someone else who's very active in the industry, another pilot who 100% understands what you're going through, the stresses of the day-to-day job, of what it's like to be away from home and to try to manage those relationships and daily life and personal life when you are home. That can be really stressful. And I think a lot of pilots underestimate how stressful that is because it is so normal to us that we're a little bit desensitized to the fact that is actually quite a lot to manage, and it's a lot that's on our plate and managing that mental load on a regular basis. So just having someone else who understands is always a really nice sounding board to have available. So you talked about, we want to try to catch pilots when they're in the green or the yellow, when their stressors are manageable and, like you said, hopefully reversible. So when should a pilot call PPS?
So when we're looking into PPS, of course, calling us early. And the best scenario is reaching out to us while you're in the yellow, getting you back to the green without any escalation protocol and no need for professional intervention. Because a lot of times we just want to talk to somebody. We're not at that stage where we need a professional to guide us. We just need a conversation, someone to listen that understands. That's maybe not that captain you've been flying with that was not as fun to fly with. But pilots
Exactly.
that call us when they're in the reacting stage can usually get back into the green with just one phone call, but we are available to do follow up calls and things like that. If needed, you could stick with the same volunteer, or you can call the hotline and get a different volunteer if you want a different perspective. We're open to all of that, and it's nothing personal, just an easy swap. But when we experience a non normal in the flight deck, an important part of dealing with that is expanding our team. Think of calling PPS when you experience a non-normal in your day-to-day. They like that is causing stress. We're here to discuss what you're experiencing and get you started with resources to cope with that situation, whatever it may be. This early intervention is key and keeps you ready to fly. And the pilot guides the process. That's a really important part to emphasize. While the volunteer will provide suggestions, so you say, hey, if you want to talk to a life coach or something like that, but ultimately it is all the pilot's decision. We cannot force anyone to do anything. We just are here to provide suggestions and be a sounding board. So unless the pilot is in immediate danger of harm, the escalation protocol must be agreed upon by the pilot. So we're really not doing anything without you wanting to do it. But a condition that fit, like conditions that fit what we call the yellow, to describe that better for everyone, we define that as someone that is irritable and impatient, has a lot of nervousness, sadness, increased worrying, procrastination, forgetfulness, trouble sleeping, more often in falling asleep, but once you fall asleep, you stay asleep. That's a different thing. Lowered energy, difficulty relaxing, intrusive thoughts, and decreased social activity would be what we would consider the yellow. And when we'd like to hear you call us and talk about it.
That's great. And I think those are all really important social individual indicators to us to be aware of what to be paying attention to for our own mental health. I know I personally have recently gone through a bout of feeling like I'm not sleeping well, and it's crazy how quickly that can spiral elsewhere, where you then feel more stressed all the time because you're not as well rested. And it's really hard in our jobs. Some nights we're working until midnight, and some days we're starting our workday at 4 a.m. And we're all doing the best we can to manage that. But noticing when that becomes more than just, oh, my flight schedule is a nightmare, is, I think, really important. And I'm glad that you mentioned each of those individual symptoms of potential mental being in the yellow, if you will, of when to seek help.
I would say I want to talk about some of the reasons for calling PPS and also for just getting yourself treatment if needed. We kind of touched on it, but what you're going through as a pilot, it also has an effect on the people around you and the people in your family. So if you don't want to seek the treatment for yourself, you think I'm fine, I'm good, think about that person at home that's like, my significant other has not been supporting me because they don't have the bandwidth, and that, like, there's other reasons to look into that mental health first aid, right, with that we provide with PPS. It's a great way to just make sure that you're able to fully be there for the people in your life. So even if you're like, this is something I can deal with, I'm okay, there's still those effects that you might not even think about right away that can affect your life. Like, suddenly, if you're not showing up in your relationship could end. And that's a huge.
Absolutely. And it's so hard for us to manage, again, the way our work schedules work. And when we're
Mm-hmm.
working, we're on and we focus everything on that and all of our energy. It's so easy then in our personal lives to kind of, I don't want to say slack, but it's really easy to come home and be exhausted and not want to engage socially and be tired and just try to mentally reset before we have to go back to work again and be go, 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 on all the time. And sometimes that really is not fair to the people in our lives day to day who are waiting to spend time with us when we get home, which, how privileged are we? We have people in our lives who are excited to see us when we're home, and they deserve the best of us too. And so do our work crews and our passengers and all of the people that we interact with day to day at
Right.
work.
Right. And I think that's why I went into family systems as my track for my mental health track, because I do recognize that one situation has a ripple effect on everyone else. And you have to make sure that the whole dynamic stays as healthy as possible. So I think that was one of the reasons why I chose that too, because of the family, because again, that job can affect everyone around them, and everyone that's involved needs to have an ability to manage it. So, I mean, we can spend a whole other podcast on what we should be doing to stay healthy in general. But Amanda, I'm glad
But
you brought that up, though. There are people that are very much tied to and need to feel supported in some capacity. So even if it's something that the pilot doesn't want to necessarily do, at least find a way for the family member to feel supported.
and also physical health. Like, if you're harboring a lot of stress and mental health and you're just keeping that inside and not doing anything about it,
Hmm.
that can start affecting your physical health. And
100%.
Bring up one other thing. I feel very saddened by the fact that there has been a lot of deaths within the industry. There's been a lot of people that are dying of heart attacks. There's even been some suicides reported. These are things that we just want to prevent. We don't want it to be a trend. We don't want this to continue to be something that keeps happening. Even though I know that everyone wants to maintain this persona and be in control and have it all figured out, quote unquote, and I'm fine, I'm good. It does take a toll on your body and on your mental health, without a doubt. So even if you think that you're doing fine, if you end up going and having a heart attack, well, obviously there's been, unless it's an undetected heart issue from, that's just medical, but think about it, stress does wreak havoc on you. So just take care of yourself. Just do whatever you can, like Megan said. Go touch the grass, go outside and stand. That's just one of the things you can do. But again, I know this isn't focused on this, but I just want to plug that. I just think it's so important. And if you're not sure what to do, call someone that can just give you a little bit of a. You can call me. I don't care. You can put my number out there. Whatever you need to do,
We'll
take care of
definitely be
yourselves.
including your contact info, Cynthia.
Just definitely take care of yourselves out there, everyone, because
Yeah.
what you do matters, but you matter to other people as well.
sorry, I never said the PPS hotline number, but it's
Oh my gosh. Tell us the
309.
PPS hotline
So
number,
yeah,
Amanda.
it's 309 PPS ALPA. So it's really easy to remember. But you can call that number and it'll connect you with one of our Piedmont volunteers. And also in the ALPA app, you have our direct cell phone numbers. So if anyone wants to reach out to me directly if it's about something you heard me say today, please do that. And also, all of our volunteers have their information on there, and we are here ready to help you. So, hotline number, super easy to remember, as well as ALPA app for our personal cell phone numbers. We're here. Maybe shoot us a text so we know you're not a bot or something, but once we figure out you're a real person, we'll definitely pick up the phone for you.
Absolutely. Yes. If you go into the ALPA app and go to our MEC and committees and pilot peer support, all of the contact info is there. On the homepage of the ALPA app, if you scroll down, there is specifically a tab for pilot peer support, and it will take you directly to the hotline number, and it will ask you if you want to call using your phone right now. And you can say yes. And also, it's important to note, like you said as well, that this is all pilot guided, pilot led. PPS is not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. And all of our PPS volunteers have been trained in handling those situations and escalating as appropriate, and also providing additional resources. I think that's also really important, that it's not just a pilot if you want other resources available to you. And so this is, hopefully both Amanda and Cynthia will have some feedback and some updates for us here. But pilot mental health has been such a hot button topic recently, especially I would say in the last 4 to 5 years. I think it's really come up increasingly. And with additional social media and a 24-hour news cycle and a lot of recent emphasis from the media on accidents and incidents in aviation, I think we're all seeing a lot of what's going on in the aviation industry across the board. So what are some of the developments that have been happening in the area of pilot mental health recently over the last few years?
So I'll talk about kind of where we're at presently and the progress that's already been made because we have seen some really good steps forward very recently in the last year or so. But presently, counseling visits are required to be reported to the FAA only if related to personal substance abuse or a psychiatric condition. That is directly from the FAA AME guide, item 19, which is where it asks for your last three years worth of medical visits. So it says right in the description there that counseling is only reportable for a substance abuse or a condition. So if you're not diagnosed with a condition and you're just there for normal life stressors, self-improvement, relationships, or other areas not requiring a diagnosis in the opinion of your mental health professional, then a report is not required to the FAA in their own words. So if you are not utilizing insurance, then that gives you a lot more flexibility to avoid a diagnosis that may not be required, because a lot of people will get a diagnosis even if they don't necessarily fit the criteria, just for insurance purposes and billing.
Right.
So
Which
for
is very
for
frustrating.
us,
Yes.
yes. So for pilots, the better path is to not get that diagnosis and pay out of pocket if that diagnosis is not warranted. However, in the situation where a diagnosis is warranted, there are also pathways to still keep your FAA medical and not even have to go through the special issuance process in some very specific situations, which is really helpful. So it's some important things if you're not utilizing insurance, or it's important to see a mental health professional that has some familiarity with aviation that can help, or it's important for you to take the time as a pilot to educate who you're speaking to what the effects are on your career. So AMAS is a really good resource provided to ALPA members that you can call them, have a discussion about what is and is not going to affect your medical. That's really helpful. And there's also a Pilot Mental Health Campaign. Another organization has published a document that is easy print out, bring with you to a provider, that just describes kind of what an FAA medical is for someone that's completely unfamiliar, so that they know, hey, I'm not going to do something that's unnecessary just for billing reasons.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's really helpful.
That is really helpful
Yeah.
because it is incredibly difficult to explain to someone who isn't
Yes.
familiar. And I will say, obviously, we're joined here by Cynthia, who's a therapist with extensive aviation background. Sometimes that is kind of hard to find. And
Very
I
much
will
so.
say something that I have been told is you can also relate it to other careers that might be highly sensitive. So, a therapist who might not necessarily have a ton of information about aviation specifically, but if you liken it to police officers or law enforcement, surgeons, high level doctors, et cetera, where the mental health is super critical, but also certain things can have an incredibly detrimental effect
Right.
that could worsen things. That's kind of maybe a good way to relate when you're trying to explain it to a therapist who might not know what that information is. And Cynthia, I'm sure you have extensive more information and more to say about that. So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if I could just go back to the PPS for just a quick second, I really, Amanda, thank you so much. I love that this is becoming the norm now. We're getting more and more involved in making sure that the pilot groups are supported and that they have a safe place to be and to go. And I love that so much. So I think that that is just wonderful. And I'm so glad. Thank you for the work you're doing. Because to be honest with you, to me, a maintenance check is what I call it, is always a good thing for people to be able to be doing on a regular basis. But to get back to what you were saying, Megan, that's why I've kind of been coined the aviation therapist, because of the background. What I would suggest anyone to do, if they don't feel comfortable going to anyone else other than, if they don't want to go to a peer support, that's fine. I highly recommend it. I think it's wonderful. It's amazing. Usually the problem is people come to someone like me when they're in crisis. And, whether it's in a relationship or it's a more severe mental health concern. And then we're kind of trying to stabilize everyone in a very quick fashion. But what I would recommend people to do, if they want to find someone to talk on a regular basis, you do want to do a consultation with someone that knows what's going on. Like you said, if it's someone that knows exactly how this industry works, there's not a lot that has to be said. We know about FA requirements. We understand the scheduling. We understand the issues at home that happen coming and going. We understand the high stress levels around recurrence. Like we get all of that. We know how that works. But you want to find someone. If you can't find someone that is necessarily in this field, like you said, someone that understands the pressures of these other types of industries would be good. But get a consultation, talk to someone, find someone that'll give you 15 minutes, to just go over things. Make sure you feel comfortable and connected with that person as well. And just to be clear, also, there are people out there that not only do this on a psychotherapy level that understand this industry, but life coaching. So if you don't want to go down the route of working with a therapist, or risking any of that stigma that you still have attached to that idea, then work with someone that is a coach, someone that can work with you in the confines of that environment, because that's a not reportable venue, where a psychotherapy it is. But as Amanda said, only certain things are reportable and other things are not. Obviously, we want people to come in, get a proper diagnosis if needed, and we can still work within whatever confines that brings out. We want people to make sure they're getting the right treatment, obviously, but we don't want someone to have access to them in this way and not understand the ramifications of what a diagnosis can do if they really don't understand how that works. So you just do the research, do your homework, make sure you're, talking to someone that's familiar with these regulations and how this industry is designed. The medical is so important. You all work so hard for that. We want you to be able to keep it, but we also want to make sure that you're getting the right help that you need if that's the case.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned the phrase wellness check, and something that I think is a good idea. And this is absolutely not a mental health professional opinion. This is just me as a person.
Hmm.
I think that seeking mental health resources or life coaching or whatever it may be when you're in a really good place
Oh yeah.
is an amazing
100%.
place to start,
100%.
because if
Hmm.
you can kind of start, so many people, and I'm in my 30s and most of my friends are married, and I see it when it comes to relationships. So many people, when they're in a relationship and it all of a sudden they're fighting and things are terrible, they're like, we should go to therapy. And I'm like, you guys should have been going to therapy for 3 years and you wouldn't have gotten to this place.
Exactly. And that's
We
what I
could have
meant.
cut this off at the pass,
Yes.
guys.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. That in there. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. And kind of having that, but also from a receiving treatment standpoint, that also provides an amazing baseline for your healthcare or coach
Yes.
provider to
Mhm.
kind of see where things were and to be able to coach you in the right direction. So that's something to consider as well. Again, don't wait until you're in crisis. Go when you're at your absolute best.
That is exactly
Start the
right.
process early
No,
and
that's exactly
consistently.
right. And I've seen people, I've had people on my caseload that I've seen them consistently monthly for 4 years. They just come in for literally a monthly checkup. And we have things that might be happening that are a little bit more dominant at that time, or it might just be more
Yeah,
like success stories we're sharing, that they want to talk to me about.
absolutely.
So, but yeah, I don't want to see anyone wait until it's to a critical point. And hopefully people will
Absolutely.
be more comfortable now that you guys have your pilot support in there in place. I'm hoping that people will utilize that more and then come see me whenever they need something a little bit more extra that needs to be handled.
Definitely. And
Mhm.
then we also started talking about the options for diagnosis, and some of the FAA responses to
Mhm.
specific diagnoses have improved. There have become ways to go about that. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that too, if it does come to the point of some other type of, mental
Yeah,
health
yeah,
diagnosis.
of course, of course. As Amanda was talking about earlier, talk therapy is something that is not reportable. So you can come in if you're having an issue in your relationship or family or anything like that, or you just need to vent. You can come in, talk to a psychotherapist like myself, and it's actually going to be documented as such. It would not be something that's going to be causing any, alarms for the FAA to think, oh, this person is not, is not fit to fly. What they would be looking at more would be a major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, something along those lines, which requires medication, and it's going to be a daily medication, most likely for the remainder of someone's life. All kinds of things can happen over time. So that would be something obviously that we would have to deal with on another level. And there's ways to get back to flying if it's not this serious. I'm just giving you like the most, critical point. But talking through relationships, talking in general about anything that you have, adjustment, life transitions. If you're going through a divorce, if you're having a baby, if you're getting married, if you're buying a house, if you are dealing with grief and loss, these are the types of things that are are absolutely overwhelming to people and can build over time. These are things that are not reportable when you come in and talk to us. We're not going to be, putting a diagnosis of, it would be an adjustment disorder, with mixed, it could be just an adjustment disorder diagnosis or adjustment disorder with mixed depression, anxiety. Again, still very minor, still very much across the board, not an issue. But those are the types of things. If you're using insurance, I want to make that very clear. Only if you're using insurance do we have to use a diagnosis at all. If you are not using insurance, it is not required. Just want to make that very clear. So if you are, make sure again people understand what you do and so that we can work with that. And
Yeah.
that's correct, done correctly.
And again, huge reminder, I can't stress this enough. Talk therapy for standard life issues, stressors, relationships, family, yourself. You are a family of one. Does not have to be disclosed to the FAA. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that say, "Oh, I can't go to therapy." Yes, you can. Go to therapy. Go to therapy.
Yes, we
Just
need to
go.
normalize it. We need to
It'll
normalize it in
be
this
it'll be
industry.
great. The worst they can tell you is that you're healthy.
Right?
And otherwise, they'll help you be more healthy. Go to
Right.
therapy, guys.
Right.
Everyone should
I
just go to
know. I
therapy.
know.
That's my soapbox for the
I
day. Just
know.
go.
You all have a very amazing, important job. And one of the biggest things that I hear is, I'm responsible for my crew. I'm responsible for all these people, and I'm responsible for my family. Yes, but you're also responsible for yourself. So if you're not okay, you can't do your job on that airplane properly or be
100%.
present for your family properly. So let's take care
100%.
of you, and then everything else is gravy, right? Everything else is all right.
Exactly. It's you can't what is the saying? You can't pour from an empty cup.
It's so true. No, it really
We
is.
all we
Mhm.
all should strive to be our best selves.
Yes, 100%.
Excellent. Amazing. And then something else that's been in the news, we've seen a lot of headlines, especially coming from ALPA National, is the Mental Health and Aviation Act that has been working its way through Congress over the last couple years. Could you guys give us an update on where that stands and what we can expect to see in hopefully the near future?
Yes. Okay, so the Mental Health and Aviation Act specifically says that once passed, it will require all of the recommendations from the Mental Health and Aviation Medical Clearances ARC to be enacted within 2 years. So, to get a preview of what is to come, you can look at that Aviation Rulemaking Committee report, which was published on April 1st, 2024. So you can check the date, make sure you got the right one, because there's an older one before that as well. So the Mental Health and Aviation Medical Clearances Aviation Rulemaking Committee. That's what you're looking for. And it's a lengthy document, just talks about all the different recommendations. And some of these recommendations have already been implemented. They are medications have been added to the allowable list by the FAA. There's a really specific process to utilize those medications, so be sure to look at the FAA website and make sure you're following it exactly. But that is still an FAA allowable option if you follow their rules exactly. And the FAA recently reduced the stabilization period from 6 months to 3 months for approved medications. So now you're looking at like kind of a short term stepping away from work instead of like, okay, this is going to be a really long absence. So that's helpful for
Oh,
financial
that's
reasons and
amazing.
other stressors. You're looking at, you're able to go back, get back to your livelihood sooner rather than later. So we like seeing that improvement. And that was a very recent change. So it's like this year change.
Amazing. And just for my knowledge, because I'm not super up to speed on all of this, I should read more. But would that be like, mood stabilizers or antidepressants or SSRIs? Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
So
Yes,
there are
that's
some
correct.
specific ones. Yeah, there's some specific ones that are
Okay.
allowed, and
Mhm.
there's some specific ones that are not allowed. So it's very important to look all that up. I'm
Yes.
Okay.
not,
Check the list.
yes, definitely look at the list. I don't know off the top of my head what exact medications are allowed, but if there's
Right.
something that you have questions on, AMAS is the resource for that if you're looking for like a
Okay.
specific thing. And if you want to utilize a fast track, like there are pathways if you have an anxiety or depression diagnosis, if you bring or ADHD, there's several common diagnoses. If you show up to your medical appointment with everything that the FAA wants and you got all your ducks in a row, you'll get your medical on the spot right there.
Wow, that is huge,
Yes.
and
Be
that's again,
prepared.
as someone who
Mhm.
I like to think I'm pretty knowledgeable on this stuff and generally an advocate, I did not realize that. So that's amazing to hear. That's absolutely wonderful. That is such a game changer.
Yes, it's all recent progress.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
Having the SSRI list is really great that they've expanded it because again, still have it in their mind if they're taking medication, it's a stigma. And the fact that they've
Yeah,
expanded the
I
list,
I literally thought it was still a no-go. I
right,
thought that that was a hardcore, "You're out. You
right,
need to just
right.
handle your problems on your own." This is wild
It's great.
information.
No,
This is new information for
it's
me. So
wonderful.
I'm
It's
sure it is for
wonderful.
most of our pilots.
Yes, and because
Oh yeah,
again, we are finding with research that people do better with medication and therapy as far as their whole overall mental wellness success rate. You can do really good with just one or just the other, but when you combine them both, so this is a little plug to make sure you guys are doing both because it does actually increase your overall wellness in the 80 percentile, where you have less than
Oh,
50%
wow.
chance. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
This is amazing.
when you combine the two, when it's warranted, you're literally giving yourself every best option to have the wellness you need. 100%.
Oh my gosh, this is
yeah,
amazing. Pilot group, we are all learning together today. This is wonderful. This is
Yes.
shocking information. That's going to hopefully positively impact many, many people.
so if
Thrill of the
you're in a
FAA has just come
situation,
around, right? To really looking at the expansion of how we can still meet everybody in the middle, more or less, and not be back where we were, where people didn't even want to say they were taking anything because, again, it was just absolutely not allowed, never going to be discussed. It's just not worth risking it. People would rather go unmedicated
Right.
and suffer than to be, than to come forward and say, hey, I need this, and
Of course.
it does help
Yeah.
me. So I'm thrilled with the whole fact that we're expanding that knowledge on SSRIs. Yes.
No, that's
Sorry, Amanda.
like I said, this is great news and it's information that I did not know. So this is absolutely wonderful to hear.
Yes,
And I do hope that it has a positive impact on any pilot who needs it.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's great if you find yourself that you were caught up in the stigma, maybe didn't call or seek treatment early enough, and you got to that point where, like, now you are kind of in a bad spot. You still have a path where you can fly and be back to work in a short amount of time. Because anyone that's been through the special issuance process knows that a lot of effort goes into it. So that now that these fast track programs are out and you don't even need to go through the special issuance process for some very specific situations, it it keeps pilots flying and really helps increase safety because pilots are so much more likely to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I need some help right now." With when that risk
Absolutely.
it decreases. So
And that's what this all comes down to is safety. Number one for the individual, but obviously happy pilots are safer pilots,
That's right.
well-rested pilots, less stressed pilots. And I think it's also important to note that while the topic of the conversation has been how you can seek mental health help and still maintain flying ability and maintain your medical and whatnot, there are going to be instances, there are going to be individuals who reach a point where that does not become safe. And
Mhm.
I also want to reiterate to any pilot who's listening that your life and your safety are more important than this career. This career is amazing. We all love it. None of us would be here if we didn't love it. It is not everything. It is not worth your life or safety if it gets to
Yes.
that point. We want to make sure that you have the resources that it doesn't get to that point, but your life, your happiness, your safety, your family should all come first and foremost before this career. This is a very cool job, but it's just a job at the end of the day, and safety has to come first.
I totally agree. Yes, the seniority number is huge. You guys work really hard to have that seniority number, and the thought of not having it or being able to, or having to give it up, or yeah, it would be a devastating situation for anyone. However, if you think about life in general, and this is not just this career, any career, your seat will be filled the next day. You know, it will be. Someone's going to replace you. We are replaceable. In our own lives, we're not. Like, we have families that matter, we have other people around us that that matter. We want to be irreplaceable to them, but the only way we can do this is by taking care of ourselves and making sure that we
Absolutely.
do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, again, all of these that we've talked about today are resources to prevent things from getting to that point, to make sure that we are able to be happy, safe pilots and keep flying as long as possible, and to do that to the best of our ability. And I'm so thrilled that there are consistently evolving resources available. I will provide many links in the show notes to information about the Mental Health and Aviation Act and the Aviation Medical Clearances Rulemaking Committee updates that Amanda referenced that was from 2024, as well as information from the FAA medical clearance and what you do need to disclose versus what you don't need to disclose, et cetera, so forth. There will be many, many links in the show notes for this episode. But that's, I think, all we have today. I very much appreciate you ladies for being with me today. And I certainly learned new things. I hope this is helpful to our pilot group. And as Amanda said, reach out to Pilot Peer Support or anyone on our Pilot Peer Support group. And I will also include Cynthia's information in the notes if you want to reach out to her or have any,
Any
questions or
questions at
advice.
all? If it's a
Yeah.
coaching thing, it doesn't matter where you live. Just want to make that clear. If it's a coaching,
Okay.
yeah, I'm licensed to do again, the psychotherapy, more involved evidence-based treatment. That's different for licensure purposes, but for any type of consultation and coaching, it doesn't matter where you are in the continental US or Europe. I work with anyone, and I have.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So yeah, we will
Yes.
absolutely be including all of that information in the show notes. Thank you, ladies, very,
Thank you.
very much. I hope to talk to both of you again very soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you.